The morning the dog wouldn't move from the old metal slide, the air in Grover's Hollow felt wrong. Too still. The kind of quiet that presses into your chest and makes you second-guess everything. Sheriff Boone Maddox had seen his K9, Diesel, act stubborn before, but this was different. The old shepherd clawed at the dirt with a frantic urgency, growling low like something was breathing beneath the ground. 30 seconds later, Boone dropped to one knee, and when the first patch of soft earth gave way, the playground fell silent, as if the town itself was holding its breath. If stories like this stay with you, like they do us, consider following along. Sometimes the quietest places hide the loudest truths. Sheriff Boone Maddox didn't believe in signs, but he did believe in routine. Each morning for the past 7 years, he drove out to the park off Mill Creek Road, sipped his lukewarm gas station coffee, and let Diesel sniff the edges of the small gravel lot. The K9 had retired 2 years ago, but Boone brought him out anyway. Diesel needed the exercise. Boone needed the silence. It was a clear Thursday in September. Fog clung to the tips of the surrounding pines, like one caught on a fence. The playground sat empty, as it usually did. Old equipment rusted at the bolts, chains groaning in the breeze. No kids came here, not since the incident. Boone parked the cruiser and let Diesel hop down on his own. The dog's back legs were stiff, but his nose still worked like it always had. Sharp and precise, tuned for things Boone would rather forget. Diesel took off like he'd caught a scent. Boone frowned. Usually the old dog lumbered along, content with old leaves and squirrel trails. But this time he moved with purpose. Tail stiff, snout low. He headed straight for the half-buried slide at the edge of the playground, a metal tunnel structure that had been part of the park since Boone was a boy. Diesel, Boone called, following. The shepherd ignored him. He reached the base of the slide and froze. His paw twitched once, then he began to scratch. Boone's chest tightened. It wasn't playful digging. It wasn't curiosity. It was memory. That deep, urgent digging K9 as due when the scent isn't just strong. It's familiar. Boone approached slowly, heart thudding. The dog growled low. Easy, boy. Diesel didn't stop. Dirt flew. Fast. Desperate. Boone knelt beside him and felt the soil. It was looser than it should have been. Turned recently. Boone's mouth went dry. He pulled out his radio, thumbed the side. Dispatch, it's Maddox. I need Detective Wren and a forensics unit at the Mill Creek Playground. Now. Static. Then, copy that, Sheriff. ETA 12 minutes. Boone clicked it off and stared at the soil. 12 minutes. Diesel whined once. A low, pitiful sound that chilled Boone worse than the wind ever could. 12 minutes later, Detective Lena Wren stepped out of her Tahoe, with a gloved hand already tying back her dark hair. She was younger than Boone by almost 2 decades, but she had eyes like someone who'd lived through too many lies. Wren had transferred from Chicago 4 years back, carrying rumors with her that she'd once let a suspect go who turned out to be a monster. No one ever asked her outright, and she never volunteered anything. She earned her place by working harder than anyone else. She crouched beside Boone and peered at the scratched-up ground. "What do we have?" she asked quietly. "I'm not sure," Boone said, "but Diesel's got something." She glanced at the old shepherd and gave him a small nod. "Start digging?" Boone nodded once. Carefully, Wren motioned to the 2 forensics techs, who pulled on masks and kneeled with soft brushes and trowels. The soil gave way easier than it should have. Within 2 minutes, a black trash bag came into view. Boone's jaw clenched. Wren's eyes didn't blink. "That's not yard waste." The techs paused, waiting for approval. Wren gave a single nod. "Open it." When they peeled it back, the smell hit first. Not decay, not death. Plastic, bleach, fabric softener. Boone turned away and exhaled hard. Inside the bag, a pale pink hoodie, children's size, torn at the collar. Beneath it, a small backpack with a cracked Lisa Frank sticker peeling off the front. The fabric had a name stitched into the side in blocky, worn letters. S. Dalton. Wren's voice came like gravel. No one seen her since 2001. Boone stood, suddenly colder than the wind. "That can't be right," he muttered. "That case, that's 24 years ago." "Exactly." She looked down at Diesel. Smart dog. Boone rubbed the old shepherd's head. He found her scent once before. That day in the orchard. But we never found a trail. Then winter came. Wren knelt again. Then someone brought this here later. No way this stuff would survive underground this long, without damage. You saying it was moved? I'm saying someone dug this up, recently, and put it here, like they wanted us to find it. Boone's stomach churned, and they knew Diesel would sniff it out. By sunset, yellow tape flooded around the playground and news had started to spread. Grover's Hollow was the kind of town where nothing stayed secret long. Boone watched from the hood of his cruiser, coffee cold in his hand. Diesel lay at his feet, still alert. His ears twitched every few seconds. Detective Wren stood by the evidence table, flipping through an old missing persons file. Her lips moved slightly, mouthing the words. She had a habit of doing that when she read. Like the act of speaking them gave them power. Boone joined her. You find anything? She didn't look up. Yeah. Sarah Dalton was last seen on the east side of town, near the fields. Boone squinted. That's 10 miles from here. She was walking home from a piano lesson. 9 years old. Never made it. I remember the case, Boone said quietly. I was still a deputy. She was smart. Quick. One of those kids who made you think maybe the world was going to be okay. Wren finally looked at him. You ever wonder if this town keeps secrets too well? Boone didn't answer. Instead, he stared out toward the trees, where the woods thickened fast, a wall of green and shadow, the same direction the scent trail had vanished all those years ago. That night, Boone parked his cruiser in front of the old Dalton house. The porch light was still on. He hadn't spoken to Marla Dalton in years. She answered the door before he could knock. Her eyes were sunken, not just tired, hollowed, the kind of look grief carved out over decades. She didn't say a word. Boone held up the pink hoodie. Her knees buckled. He caught her before she fell. No scream, no sob, just one word, like a breath. Sarah. Later, after the town went quiet and the evidence had been locked up, Wren sat alone at the station, clicking through cold case files. She stopped when she reached an old photograph, a group of men from a 1999 community cleanup project, standing in front of that same playground, smiling. The slide was already there, but one man in the picture stood slightly apart. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't looking at the camera. He was staring at the ground beneath the slide. Wren leaned in, zoomed the image. The man was Tom Claymore, a former parks supervisor. Dead. 3 years ago. Heart attack. But something else caught her eye. Behind his boot, the edge of a shallow hole. Barely visible. Her pulse quickened. She printed the photo and stared at it. This wasn't over. Not even close. By morning, the town had split clean down the middle. Some said it had to be a mistake, that the items found under the slide were planted by someone with a sixth sense of humor. Others whispered what Sheriff Boone Maddox already feared. Whoever put that pink hoodie there knew Sarah Dalton, knew what happened to her, and wanted someone to start asking questions again. Detective Lena Wren hadn't slept. She arrived at the station before sunrise, 2 thermoses of black coffee in hand, hair still damp from a rush shower. She was staring at the blown-up image from a 1999 community photo, now pinned to a whiteboard in the back office, when Boone walked in. You get anything new? He asked, voice gravelly from a night on the couch. She didn't look up. Maybe. Look at this. Boone stepped closer. She pointed to the spot where Tom Claymore stood, foot just off the edge of the old slide. Notice anything? Boone squinted. It's hard to say. Could be a hole. Could be a trick of light. Or he buried something. He died 3 years ago. Wren handed him a folder. He also worked parks and maintenance for 26 years. Had keys to every gate, every shed, every storage facility, including the one that backed up to the North Trail, the one Sarah supposedly vanished near. Boone rubbed his jaw. That shed's been locked since '09. No one's touched it since the budget cuts. Wren nodded. I want to see it. Now. They took Wren's Tahoe out past the East Bluff trailhead, beyond the clearing where teenagers sometimes drank warm beer in the summer, past the rusted fencing that marked the old utility lane. sat a squat wooden structure nearly swallowed by vines. The forest had tried to reclaim it. Boone fumbled with a ring of master keys. It was the fourth one that turned the lock with a rusty groan. The door creaked open. Inside, mold dust and the smell of old gas. A line of metal shelves ran along the back wall. Paint cans, a rotted sleeping bag, a stack of orange traffic cones. Boone swept the flashlight across each. Doesn't look like anyone's been here in years. But Wren didn't answer. She was crouched in the far corner, staring at something wedged between the beams. A single piece of lined notebook paper, yellowed and curled at the edges, pinned by a rusted nail. The ink had faded, but the handwriting was still legible. Names. 4 of them. S. Dalton. D. Hayworth. C. Phelps. B. Travers. Below the names, a series of numbers drawn in hasty pen. Wren snapped a photo and looked at Boone. You recognize any of the others? Boone nodded slowly. Brett Travers was reported missing in 2006. Walked off during a hunting trip. No one ever found a body. And Hayworth, Darren Hayworth, skipped town in 2003. People said he was running from gambling debts, but his truck was found 2 towns over. Keys still in the ignition. Wren's voice lowered. This isn't just about Sarah. Boone took a step back. You think we got a dump site? I think Claymore was hiding something a hell of a lot bigger than we ever knew. Back at the station, they laid the map out on the conference table. The numbers weren't coordinates. But Wren noticed something odd, a pattern to the spacing. Could be old lot markers, she said, tracing her finger over the numbers. Before zoning change in 95, a lot of county records were still in land plats. Boone raised an eyebrow. You saying these are rural parcels? Maybe, she said, or locations. He stood, moving toward the old filing cabinet in the back. You know who'd still have the plat maps? Don't say it. Earl Farley. Wren groaned. The one who smells like chewing tobacco and conspiracy theories? He's also the best damn archivist left in the county. They found Earl in the basement of the county records building, sitting behind a cracked plastic desk surrounded by towers of water-stained boxes. He wore a sweat-stained ball cap and a hunter's vest covered in pins that read things like, "Don't tread on me," and "I don't dial 911. Earl smiled when he saw Boone. Well, I'll be. The sheriff come crawling back to the man with the knowledge. Boone didn't bother with pleasantries. We need zoning plats from before 95. Earl's eyebrows rose. You chasing ghosts? Maybe. The old man dug through a pile of maps and rolled out a yellowing scroll on the table. Wren handed over the list of numbers. Earl ran a thick, dirt-lined finger down the paper, nodding slowly. These here, he tapped 3 times. They line up with parcels off Burnt Creek Road. That whole area got bought up by the county in 98. No one's touched it since. Wren's voice was tight. What's out there? Old Orchard. Dirt access road. Maybe a shack or 2 left. Why? Boone closed the folder. Because someone buried a secret out there, and I think it's waiting to be found. The orchard wasn't on any GPS. They had to hike the last half-mile on foot. Diesel limped behind them, tongue hanging, tail low, but still alert. The trees had long gone feral. Gnarled limbs twisted into each other like arthritic hands reaching skyward. The grass grew tall and brown, waving like whispers. Boone stopped first, a shape in the clearing ahead. Wren followed his gaze. A small shack, with warped roof sagging. The door hung loose. She raised her weapon. Boone did the same. They stepped inside together and froze. The smell was unmistakable. Earth, plastic, copper. Boone swept his light across the floorboards, only to stop on a hatch in the corner, half covered in burlap and pine needles. Help me? Together, they pulled the hatch open. It groaned. Inside, darkness. Boone clicked on a brighter light and shone it down. A dirt chamber, shallow, and in it, a box, not wood, metal, with 2 names scratched crudely on the top. B. Travers. C. Phelps. Wren's hand trembled slightly as she reached for the latch. Inside lay 2 sets of clothing, mummified by time and temperature, a decayed wallet, a dog tag, a broken wristwatch stopped at 2:17. Boone stepped back, bile rising in his throat. They were buried together. Wren turned toward him. Someone cataloged them, labeled them. This isn't random. This is methodical. Boone nodded, his voice like gravel. And it means Sarah Dalton was just a first. That night, Boone returned to the Dalton house. Marla opened the door, pale and silent. "I need to show you something," Boone said. He laid the photo on her kitchen table, the one with Tom Claymore near the slide. Then the list of names. Then the new location on the orchard map. She stared for a long time, then touched one finger to Claymore's face. "I knew it," she whispered. Boone's breath caught. "You knew?" "I didn't have proof," she said, "but I knew he took her. Why didn't you tell us?" "Because no one would have listened. He was my brother." Boone stepped back like she'd slapped him. Marla closed her eyes. "I think he kept her alive for a while, after she vanished. I used to hear crying in his shed at night. You didn't report it." She shook her head, voice cracking. "I thought I was losing my mind." Back at the station, Boone stared at the wall of files. All those years, all those missing names. And Claymore had walked among them, laughing, smiling, feeding his dog in the park across from the very playground where he buried his guilt. Boone sat heavily in his chair. Wren stood in the doorway. "We've got 2 more names on that list," she said softly. Boone looked up, and a dog who still got something left in him. Diesel thumped his tail once, then stood. The next morning, a cold wind swept through Grover's Hollow. It came down from the hills sharp and sudden, as if some unseen thing had exhaled through the trees. Boone Maddox felt it slice through his coat as he stepped out his cruiser, staring down the wooded ridge beyond the orchard. Wren joined him seconds later, a thermal mug in her gloved hands. "You sure about this?" she asked quietly. Boone didn't answer. He was watching Diesel. The old shepherd stood still, ears twitching, nose raised into the wind. He didn't bark, didn't whine, just waited. "We found 3 names accounted for," Wren said. "Sarah Dalton, Brett Trevors, and Callie Phelps. That leaves Darren Hayworth." Boone nodded. "And we still haven't figured out the last coordinate from the map." Wren pulled out a wrinkled page and pointed to the final set of numbers. "I traced it back to the county grid. Comes out just beyond the old campgrounds, where the land dips west of the ravine." Boone's eyes narrowed. "That's on private property now. Belongs to Curtis Langston." Wren raised an eyebrow. "Langston? He's still around." Boone's mouth was tight. "Yeah, still owns a scrapyard up near the ridge. Keeps to himself. Used to work maintenance under Claymore." Wren looked up sharply. "He ever questioned back then?" "No, not even close. He was Claymore's drinking buddy. Spent every other weekend hunting up in the hills. And no one thought that was worth digging into?" Boone's jaw tightened. "I did." He turned and opened the tailgate. Diesel jumped down, slower than he used to, but with purpose. He moved toward the woods with his head low, sniffing the air. And then suddenly he stopped. One paw lifted, a soft growl under his breath. The wind died. Boone and Wren exchanged a glance. "Let's go," she said. The woods behind Langston's property were thick with pine and silence. They followed Diesel through twisted brush and old hunting trails. Dead leaves whispered underfoot. Every step felt heavier than the last. After 30 minutes, they reached the edge of a clearing. At the center stood a rusted-out bus, its windows shattered, half swallowed by bramble and ivy. A pair of dented oil drums leaned nearby, tagged with graffiti long faded by rain. Diesel slowed, then growled again. The scent was thick here. Boone approached the bus door, flashlights sweeping through the broken interior. Mice scattered. Something shifted in the back, too large to be a raccoon. Wren moved to the far side, hand on her weapon. "Boone." "I hear it." Then, from behind the bus, Diesel barked once. Low, hard. Boone circled the edge and found the dog digging, his paws toward the soil beside a rotted wooden post. Something once used to tie back tarps, maybe, or a makeshift fence. The ground was soft again. Too soft. Boone knelt, There, a strip of black vinyl. The same kind as the others. Half exposed from the dirt. He pulled it free. The scent hit immediately. Wren covered her mouth. Inside was a satchel. Old, cracked at the edges, and stuffed with newspaper, plastic, and a folded map. A map of the town, with red excess. 9 of them. Boone counted. We only have 4 names. Wren took the map gently. There were more, she whispered. Way more. At Langston's scrapyard, the rusted chain fence squealed open under Boone's boot. The house beyond looked like it had been abandoned for years, but there was smoke curling from the chimney. They knocked. Langston answered in a flannel shirt stained with grease. His beard was thick, gray, his eyes bloodshot. "You lost," he said. Boone stepped forward, Diesel beside him. "We need to ask you a few questions, Curtis." Langston leaned against the doorframe, smirked. "I got nothing to say." Wren held up the photo, the one from 1999 with Claymore and Langston half visible at the edge, holding a shovel. Langston's face changed. Barely, but it changed. Boone stepped closer. "We found the orchard, the shack, the map. We know you were there." Langston didn't move. Then, softly, "I didn't kill those kids." "Then who did?" Wren asked. Langston's jaw clenched. "You think Claymore did it alone? He couldn't lift a deer carcass without help, let alone move bodies. You know how many nights I saw him walk back out of the woods, covered in mud, shaking like a leaf." He stepped back inside, motioned for them to follow. Reluctantly, they did. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee and rust. Langston pointed to a locked cabinet near the fireplace. "It's all there. Diaries, letters, stuff he made me hold on to. Said if anything happened to him, someone needed to know." Wren forced the lock. Inside, 3 old notebooks, stiff from age. Inside were scribbled entries in Claymore's handwriting. Boone read one aloud. "She asked for her mother today. I told her she'd see her soon. She didn't believe me. The crying won't stop." Another entry. "Curtis said I had to let her go. But I told him, once you take something, you don't just give it back. She was mine now." Wren froze. He kept them alive. Boone's voice dropped. "Some of them." Diesel suddenly barked. Wren turned toward the back of the house. A small door stood ajar. Curtis sighed. He built a cellar under the shed. I sealed it after he died. Didn't want to know what was down there. Boone nodded. "You're coming with us." Curtis didn't argue. Outside, the shed sat crooked, one hinge broken. They forced the door and shone lights inside. A trap door in the floor. They opened it. The ladder creaked with weight. And then the smell. Wren gagged. Boone pressed his sleeve to his face and climbed down. Diesel refused to follow. At the bottom, concrete walls. A cot. Chains. A name scratched into cement. D. Hayworth. And across from it, another line. Fainter. Jagged. "Help me." Boone stood there a long time, not moving. Wren's voice came soft over the edge. "What do you see?" "Hell," he said. By the time they emerged, the sun was setting. Langston was cuffed and silent in the back of the cruiser. The notebooks were sealed in evidence bags. Boone sat with Diesel near the edge of the woods. The dog's eyes were tired, but he leaned his head against Boone's leg like he used to long ago. "Good boy," Boone whispered. "You did good." Wren walked up quietly. "We're not done, you know. There could be more. We need to check every X on that map." Boone nodded. "But we found them. Sarah, Darren, Brett, Callie." She sat beside him. "And someone left those things at the slide to make sure we did." Boone looked up. "You think it was Langston?" Wren shook her head. "No. Someone else wanted Claymore's sins brought to light." Boone stared into the woods. Then they knew the truth. And they're still out there. Wren's voice dropped. "Maybe watching." Epilogue 100 words. They closed the Dalton case. Officially. But Boone knew closure was a word people used when the pain was too old to fight anymore. Sarah never came home. But she was found. And the town, somehow, still breathed. Diesel passed a month later. Quietly at Boone's side. The old dog had scratched at the earth not just to find the truth, but to make the people who buried it remember. And now, sometimes, Boone finds himself walking the playground at dusk, just as the wind picks up, listening, because some ghosts don't speak with words. They speak with silence.